If you're filing a VA disability claim for the first time, this video will walk you step by step through the entire process, from the intent to file to the CMP exam, so that you will understand exactly how to do so. The information in this video will be coming from the 38 CFR Part 3 and the 38 CFR Part 4, and how the VA actually processes claims under the M21-1 manual. So the first step in the entire process before gathering records or before submitting anything to the VA, the first thing you're going to want to do is file what is called an intent to file. This locks in your effective date for up to 1 year, and you can file this form at va.gov or by submitting VA Form 210966 or by calling the VA directly and filing it over the phone. If you wait to file your intent to file, you risk losing months of retroactive back pay because you will have a later effective date once your claim is fully adjudicated. The next step in the process is going to be to identify the conditions that you will be claiming. Just don't write in your submission package back pain, anxiety, or knee issues, for example. Instead, identify the diagnosed condition if you have one, and if not, you must get one because the VA will not assume you have one, nor will they automatically assign you one. Your diagnosis can be obtained by your VA primary care physician or your private doctor. They could be diagnosis that you've already got, or it could be diagnosis that you're in the process of getting. And it's also extremely important to clearly describe the symptoms associated with your diagnosed conditions. The VA rates conditions under the Schedule for Ratings Disability, which is the 38 CFR Part 4. If you don't clearly state what you're claiming, it can delay your development. So familiarize yourself with the appropriate schedules associated with your claimed condition and speak the proper language associated with the level of severity of your condition from the 38 CFR Schedule 4, so that the accurate description of your condition will be conveyed in your package submission. Also, claim every condition you believe is related to your service on your initial claim because you can't be rated for what you don't claim. And this will also reduce rating reduction risk in the future that could be created by opening up a new claim after your initial set of claims have been adjudicated. So the next step in the process is going to be to establish the 3 elements of service connection. That'd be a Kirk diagnosis, an in-service event that caused the injury or the illness, and a nexus, a medical nexus, which is a medical opinion stating that the in-service event did indeed cause your diagnosed conditions that you are claiming. If one of these elements are missing, your claim can be denied. So focus on at least having your diagnosis and your in-service event fully developed and supported by evidence before actually submitting your claim to the VA. Now, I'm saying the claim, not the intent to file. It's 2 separate things. The intent to file is what you initially filed, protecting and preserving your effective date. Now we're talking about filing the claim under that intent to file once you've gathered your information. So it's important to understand your nexus will most likely be created, especially for your initial claims, via a VA-ordered CMP exam. Note that just in my opinion, like I said, just in my opinion, I would hold off on your initial claims. I would hold off on getting a private DBQ or a private nexus, and I would wait to see what the final outcome of your claim is before investing into one of those. If you do get a denial on your initial claim, then you may want to consider investing into a private DBQ or a private nexus to help you on the next step. For example, if you file a supplemental claim, etc. Now, the evidence supporting your claim and your claimed conditions could be elements such as service treatment records or service treatment records from in-service, your VA medical records, private records and private medical records from your private physicians, buddy statements from people that you served with or your spouse or people that have lived with you and witnessed your conditions, and also personal statements from yourself, or sometimes referred to as lay statements, that will help support your claim as well. All right, so once you have filed your intent to file and you have identified your claimed conditions and obtained a diagnosis, and then gathered together all of your supporting evidence for those claimed conditions, your next step is going to be to submit the evidence up front to the VA along with your initial package submission, okay? So at this point, all you've done is submit an intent to file to the VA. That's it. But now that you've gathered all this information and you got your file locked and cocked, now it's time to actually get it submitted to the VA for them to make a decision. Now, the reason that it's important, I think, that you do it this way, and it's exactly how I did it, is that by doing that, whenever that rater gets your file, they're looking at your application for submission for the claim. They're looking at all your supporting evidence, your diagnosis, everything else that supports your claims, your lay statements, your buddy statements, your service treatment records, if you're in service events, all the information around your in-service events that justify the claim condition. They're looking at all that. And if you give it to them up front at one time in your initial submission, you make it extremely easy for them to be able to review that information and make a decision versus having to look at the information, put a pause on it, and then come back to you for additional information, which just delays the whole process. The best way to go about it is to do it clean, all up front, and cover all the bases possible before actually filing the claim with the VA. The more complete your claim is, the less development delay that you will have, and the less likely of mistakes being made. Remember, junk in will equal junk out. And don't have the mindset that the VA is going to figure this all out for you. I'm going to submit my application. They already know all about me. They're going to look at my files and they're going to understand that I was in this particular situation or that, and these events had to cause this. They're not going to do any of that, okay? All they're going to do is look at the evidence you submit to them. I can't say it enough. That's why it's important that you organize it and make it easy for them. They're going to look at that evidence. They're going to make a determination. They do have a duty to assist in certain situations, but make it easy for them to say yes and extremely hard for them to say no, you're denied. Now, once you've done all this legwork, everything now is submitted to the VA, okay? Your next step is going to be to start preparing for your CMP exams. You already know what claim conditions that you filed for. So speak with your accredited VSO, your accredited attorney, whoever you got representing you, or if you're doing it yourself, go out and do research on the claim condition that you have. Do research on what the CMP exams are likely going to be about for those claim conditions. That way there you understand what to expect. You understand the language that's appropriate to make sure you're conveying the proper information to the examiner. And that way everybody then understands your severity and gets a clear perspective on how you should be rated within each one of those conditions. And it's important to be honest, be consistent, and be specific about the frequency, severity, and the functional impacts of your conditions. Don't exaggerate, but don't minimize either, because your rating will be based largely on what is documented in this CMP exam. Now, I do have other videos on CMP exams specifically. I recommend you go watch those. I'll try to remember to put one down in the description of this video. Watch that, get prepared, and make sure that you understand what needs to happen when you go into your exam. So after you've submitted it, you can monitor your claim by going to va.gov. You'll need to set up an account if you hadn't already done so. It's a verified account through the federal government. It'll walk you through the process. But from there, you will be able to sign in. You'll be able to see where the claim status is. I will be the first to tell you it's not the most transparent, but it does at least give you something you can look at to understand to some extent where you currently are. You're going to want to respond quickly to any kind of development letter request that you get, any request for any kind of supporting evidence. Don't ignore those requests. And make sure that you keep copies of everything that you submit to the VA that is associated with your claim, and keep it in an organized manner, not just for throughout the claim process, but for any time in the future as well, if you're ever called back in for a routine future exam, or if a proposed reduction is sent to you, for example. Now, the average processing times on getting your VA claim done varies due to many different circumstances, okay? But if you make sure your file is organized, you make sure it's simple to understand and follow, and you fortify your file with sound evidence that is directed toward the appropriate claim condition to where the VA rater can quickly see your evidence, understand what it's associated with, what you do is this makes it hard for the rater to say denied and makes it easier for the rater to say approved. That's your goal. So if you file your initial claim correctly, you do reduce your chance of denial and you increase your chance of a proper rating on the first attempt. This process is all about preparation, not speed, but you must hit the 1 year deadline if you're filing an intent to file to make sure that you do preserve the effective date that is identified by the intent to file. Talk to your accredited VSO, your accredited attorney on that issue so that you understand what date you have to have everything to them to get submitted to the VA on your behalf. Hey, if you found today's video useful, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, put a like on the video so to send it out to more veterans. And as always, I appreciate you watching. I'm Mike, and I'll see you in the next episode.